Thank you, Senator Gaines. Other questions or comments? Yes, Senator Fuller.
Well, I'd like to start with the bright spots in the bill, which I think are, I appreciated the sediment removal and the seismic repair. And I think we'll be facing more of those issues in the future. So those were some supportable items that were brought forward. However, I won't be supporting the bond today, even though I know its author's intent is very good, because it replaces, and the word replaces, the 2009 bond package is problematic for me. The 2009 bond package that I helped negotiate as a bipartisan effort was a learning experience for me, and I went from looking at water as a local regional problem for my area to looking at it as a comprehensive statewide project. And basically the problem that we were trying to solve then was the state's doubled population, which meant adding new water to supply, and that requires new storage, and that is missing in this piece to the extent that I feel it necessary to solve that problem. It also, in that piece of it, we sort of agreed that the legislature has a history of sort of up and down decisions, inconsistent sometimes with themselves, so that when we put out a bill, we wanted to put out a bill, a bond bill that was all sort of done, that was finished, that did not require legislative appropriation over every single item. This bill does not assure me that that piece that was in the 2009 bill could occur. In other words, it does not give continuous appropriation, especially to the storage money, which in order to finish a whole building project, you need to have. The other problem we were trying to solve, that the place where I grew as a person, was that the ecosystem of a major important area, which is the Delta, needed to be restored. And as I look over California, I see other areas that we didn't take precautions for and that we are continuing to have problems from. And this bill does not address the restoration of the Delta ecosystem to the extent that the bipartisan statewide group agreed upon at that time, and that was a difficult agreement to reach. And I think that taking a step backwards from that takes a step backwards from the state. The new piece of the problem that we all need to address, and this is the third and last piece, is climate change. And if we believe that climate change is going to result in sea level rise and increasing frequency of droughts and fires with the resulting increasing saltwater intrusion, then we need to continue on the path of the 2009 bill, which basically gave additional supply to help with those fires, to help with the conservation efforts in watershed areas that existed in that bill, and to deal with drought. At this state, it is not that we do not have enough water in this state, because we have the Sierra Nevadas, and that is a wonderful, wonderful asset. It is that we have not stored enough water to get us through the cyclical weather patterns, and we still have not addressed that problem in this bill adequately. And so the replace part is troubles. The last piece, I don't believe that local water conservation measures in local governmental districts is that far off the mark. I think that this bill tries to reach into that area, and I think the drought and the governor's declaration of an emergency will continue to spur those conservation efforts. And while I embrace the goal that we do need more conservation and recycling, and I also embrace that it should be a local project, as it has been until proven that the local area is not able to do it alone. The disadvantaged communities, I think, is a small piece of this bill that we're all going to have to face. And there was a piece in the other bill that would take care of that for $1 billion. So moving forward, I'd like to say that while I appreciate this author very, very much, I think she's one of the water experts in this room. I cannot vote for this bill, and it hurts me not to, but I cannot because it replaces a bill that had a different focus, a bigger focus, and a more pronounced problem for me at this time. But I will be happy to continue to work with her if there's room in her bill on the two areas that I have aforementioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to thank the author. She has been a tireless champion on water issues, and we all know her work over the years, so thank you for continuing to come back and working on this issue. I just wanted to just briefly mention, many have talked about it already, I appreciate the efforts with regard to reuse and recycling. Many communities have been using wastewater, treated waters for recycling for irrigation, community irrigation, city parks, those such things for many, many years. I remember back when I was a mayor, we were using treated wastewater for irrigation and also for some very important recycling and industrial use projects as well. So these aren't novel and these are not new. And obviously during this time of the drought, we should be focusing on this. This is, of course, your water bond bill, but obviously the drought before us requires us to be very creative and to stretch as far as we can with our technologies to continue to make sure we have a safe supply of water. Senator Wilk, I did have a question. Obviously, this afternoon we're going to be hearing the governor's announcement, the pro tem and the speaker's announcement with regard to drought legislation, and I'm just wondering how you are coordinating your thoughts with this bond with the proposed drought legislation before us.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. We are coordinating closely. We are looking at the language. We don't want to step on each other's toes at all. What is being proposed, as I understand it, is the use of unencumbered, unspent, existing bond funds to get them out the door as quickly as possible in areas where there could be some immediate short-term relief for the drought, and that's a whole range of things. And I support it strongly. If we want to coordinate closely, we want them to complement each other and not to be in conflict at all, frankly. There's not enough money, period, for all the things we're talking about. So the focus of the leadership and the governor is to, because of the drought, to get money that we have available out the door quickly to the projects that are ready to go. I support that. Ours is more, assuming this all passes, it has to go to the ballot by the time you get regulations in place for programs that aren't already in place. We're trying to emphasize programs that already are and using agencies that already are there. These are projects that are really near term, but again, achievable, but not as quick as what the governor and the two leaders are talking about today.
I think your work and the other ideas that we'll see come forward and the crisis of the drought are going to give us plenty of opportunities to do a better job.
Thank you, Senator Corbett. Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you. I also want to commend the author for her patience on an issue where you put 4 people in a room and you get 6 opinions. And I sort of feel that that's been the case with this.
For lawyers, Senator Jackson.
Yes, of course. So I do want to thank you, and I do appreciate this. I am going to support it. It's not perfect. I note that the money that we have in here for some of the processes that you've articulated, particularly with the whole idea of clean water, drinking water, and so forth. The U.S. EPA estimates California needs $40 billion in the next 20 years to deal with our drinking water issue. So obviously this bond, some may argue, has too much, and many will argue it doesn't have enough. So you're sort of right in the eye of the storm here, and I do appreciate it. I just want to suggest This isn't perfect, but there is no perfect to the answer to this. And I just would like to reiterate that there are several different stages here that we're addressing. One is our crisis, which is right now, how are we going to provide water? I was just looking over some of my notes of my own community. Our water usage with a tiered water system, metered, low-flow toilets and showers and things that we brought to my community in Santa Barbara County and Ventura counties, we did 20 years ago when we had a very severe drought then, and they have stayed in place. So our use of water has stayed flat over the last 20 years, even though we've added new crops, we've added greater efficiencies, we've added population. So I think there are things that we can do. But this is a crisis right now, and there are places where water is going to end essentially by summer if we don't do something. So that's what I look at what the governor is going to announce today as this is crisis mode. But we have crisis mode way too often in our state. So we get to the short, mid, and long term. And I would like to reiterate and to associate myself with Senator Pavley's observation that we need to manage groundwater in the state. And it is absolutely shocking to me that in a state which is so fickle in its access to water and so demanding in our use of water, that we have no plan. It just blows my mind. And after 100, 150 years of these ebbs and flows, we still don't have a plan. So my hope is that as we go forward, we start talking very honestly and realistically about creating a groundwater plan in this state. We have to have it, whether we want more storage, whether we want more stormwater runoff procedures, whether we want to recycle, if we want to desalinate, whatever it is, we have to have a better plan. And so I know that we need to sort of differentiate the immediate crisis. Then I look at this bond as sort of a short to midterm approach that we need. But I also ask myself, why in a state where water is such a problem, where we don't have a groundwater plan, where we have senior versus junior property rights for water, heavens to Betsy's, we're growing almonds and pistachios and all these high water usage crops, which make somebody a lot of money. And, I'm a big almond fan, so I am pleased to see almonds on the horizon. But heavens, we have done nothing to create any kind of coherent, integrated plan for the use of water in this state. And so as we sit here and we do our whack-a-mole, I want more for this and less for that, and this is a good idea and that one isn't, and what we did then, and now we have new technologies, these are all legitimate concerns. But unless and until we tackle the big issue here, this is all we're going to be keeping our finger in the dike every 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I don't know how you've kept from from getting gray hair over this, and I won't ask. But, this is really a challenge, and there's no right answer. I'm sure I'm not saying anything that everybody else isn't thinking, but I just think we need to put it all on the table at some point. So I thank you for what you're doing. I'm going to support it. It's not perfect. I know my community would like to see a little bit more here and there, and I know you're working those. You've taken copious notes. But I hope that we will all recognize that nothing is not an option here right now, and that we need to move forward and do what we can for the state as a whole, as well as for our own communities.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Let me write that down. Heavens to Betsy. I haven't heard that in a long time. Thank you. Senator Leno, then Senator Hancock.
In an attempt not to repeat so much of what my colleagues have already said, let me just definitively state you are doing the Lord's work. By definition and design, you will not have universal agreement on the choices that are made. But clearly, we can be doing so much more than we are right now with greater water use efficiency and stormwater capture and recycling, reclamation, reuse. All of these can and will increase our water supply at a time when we need it so desperately. Now, I'm speaking as one who did not support the 2000 bond for a number of reasons. I think we all need to keep in mind it. As a good Democrat, I've never not supported a general obligation bond, but I really had to stop and think as I began to chair the Budget Committee that we get the sense this is free money. that there's no revenue stream to pay for this. It comes out of our ever-shrinking general fund, which has more and more demands on it all the time. So it's coming out of someone else's hide to pay for this. So the price tag was a bit much for me. I really would prefer to see some revenue source, but I do know that you have requirements for local agencies to provide matches with a sensitivity to disadvantaged communities, so that's a very good component of your proposal as well. And there was mention of what I know is a debatable continuous appropriation, and I hope that you will stand firm. I would like to believe that working with those who would and make the case for a continuous appropriation, that language can be found in the bond itself so that there will be no wiggle room, that these projects which are designed to fund, whether it's storage or any other component, that the need for the continuous appropriation will not be necessary. The voters will approve it. It will be spent. But legislative oversight is essential. We've defunded the judiciary branch of government. It's on life support. If we now eliminate legislative oversight, you remove a good part of the second branch of government, and then you're left with a potential imperial executive branch, which I don't think any of us here could embrace. The need for legislative oversight for billions and billions of dollars of expenditure of taxpayer money is critical. But again, I think it can be written in a way so that no one feels that they're going to get double dealt. And I think that's probably at the foundation of that expression of support for a continuous appropriation. So unlike 2009, I will be supporting your bond today. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Senator Leno. Senator Hancock.
I think I should move the bill at this point. But I think we may need to have Senator Wolk close first. I also did not vote for the bond that is on the ballot, and I believe that a very large part of my district and my communities would not have supported it. So I am very in favor of moving this bond forward. I'm very interested in what the governor and the leadership are going to propose for short-term actions today. The two things taken together will be an enormous step forward for California. And serving on the SAB, we seem to manage to fund schools even though we have legislative oversight, and under some circumstances, projects don't move forward. So I think that we can find good language for that. And I was hoping that Senator Wolk might address some of the issues in the proposed amendments. And in Senator Waso's letter in her close, but I would be prepared to move the bill as amended to finance and governance after the close.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. And I can't tell you what a joy it is to chair this committee, because the insight and the wisdom that comes from my colleagues is really a delight. And I'm just really pleased with those. And I, too, did not vote for that bond in 2009. So this will be something new for me in voting for this one. But I do appreciate the comments that were expressed. And I know Senator Corbett raised the issue of kind of the consistency with other bills, or the issues that will be coming forward with the drought legislation that will be seen. And I appreciate your comments of complementing that as it moves forward. And if it comes to a point in time where there are changes that are addressed, maybe we could take another look at the bill before it gets finished to the process, so that we can make sure that there is some consistency in there, and that it is working.
I would love the opportunity for your staff and my staff and Senator Wilkes' staff look at some of these amendments and the wording.
Oh, and I was going to address that. Absolutely. This gets into the issue of stormwater and some of the issues that were raised, recycling and those areas that I think are in groundwater cleanup, and some of the issues that I think have come to light in the last week or so, that we wanted to make sure that this bill was did move forward in a timely manner, but I know there are other issues that have been raised, and so in the next week or so we could work on those together and address those as well. I interested in Senator Fuller's comments, and I think in Senator Gaines on some of those issues related to storage. I think we heard some of those that I think are very, very important considerations, and I would hope that as time moves forward, we can, and with the same sensitivity as Senator Leno in terms of the budget, and someone's going to have to pay for this, but if there is an opportunity to include some of those things that will kind of create that balance that I think we're looking for so that we can address as many issues as possible in this, because I don't think we get many bites at the apple for a bond that can be as comprehensive as this, and so it would be nice if we can look at those issues as time moves on, and certainly as this bill moves to, hopefully it moves to the other house, and we can do that. So, if you'd like to close, Senator Walk, I don't see any further questions, and then we'll take Senator Hancock's motion.
Okay, Senator Hill. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for again allowing and fostering the collaborative process among the staffs, and I truly appreciate that, as well as Senator Pavley and Senator Leno, who was very helpful to me on some suggestions involving continuous appropriation. So I really, that I applaud that kind of team approach and welcome it, and it makes for a better product. So thank you for that. There are some issues I just wanted to address. First of all, there has been a change in the last 4 years since 2009. And I think that my focus has been on what can get passed by the voters that can achieve consensus, because no water bond that goes on the ballot that has organized opposition will pass. They never get, robust passage rates. So it's really essential that there be no organized opposition. So finding consensus, is really essential to making this happen. And that's what I'd like to see happen. I think that the overall philosophy of this bond is to focus on the local, regional projects that water districts want and need to be able to increase the reliability of our existing water supply, add supply where possible, and to focus on the quality and cleanup of the supply that we currently have. Specifically, just to answer some of the questions, the language, and if we haven't done it well enough, I welcome the opposition to come forward with specific language. We want in the general provisions, we state that it is in fact that we want these projects to be consistent with the Delta Reform Act of 2009, which I did not vote for. But I do believe it is state law and it needs to be followed. We cannot, however, pick and choose the sections that we want to follow. Reducing reliance on the Delta is also part of the 2009 legislation, and the role of the Delta Conservancy, if I may just say, it was written in a way that gave the Delta Conservancy a fair amount of power, including the ability to hold land, to acquire water or water rights. I mean, there's a lot in here that I think is exactly what the legislature intended. And even though I didn't vote for it, my staff wrote a great deal of it because we needed a Delta Conservancy. The Delta's in crisis. So consistency with the Delta Reform Act is important. That is state law. To the water recycling issue, I hear the concerns. We will take a look at that closely. I see there doesn't seem to be a major reason not to have a separate category. Let's take a look at that, as well as the groundwater cleanup best management practices, which the chair from Natural Resources and Water mentioned. On the continuous appropriation, I agree with Senator Leno that it's possible. Let's just start. I think it's important to have legislative oversight. I understand the concerns that somehow there'll be money that will never get appropriated, it'll get stopped at the legislature. My feeling is if a project has been approved in the storage area and it is ready to go, I don't want to see any blockades thrown up in front of it. I think it's appropriate to move these projects forward once they have a reality and are at the point of going to be shovel ready. And I think that any language that can do that I welcome it. So I really want to do that. Senator Hancock, you asked me to address the issues in Senator Huesa's letter. I'm very pleased that he put them in writing. I appreciate that. Let me start with the easy ones. He raises the issue of eligibility requirements that have been added to the bill, DWR certification of the plans, of the 3030 plans. Again, this goes to the heart of accountability. I do not want to add extra layers of difficulty to getting money out the door. We've already heard a great deal about integrated regional water management and other programs where money just seems to take years and years to get done. We don't want to do that, and we will address that issue. The other was he felt that there was an exclusion of desalination projects. We don't believe that's the case. That was not my intent. If we need to be more specific about that, we'll add that in. Integrated regional water management, if that's what a local community and a regional plan includes and they decide to do it and there's a project, I have no problem with that. In fact, I think for the future, it's a really important source of water. He mentions the lack of continuous appropriation. I think I've spoken to that. I think we can work out, I hope, some kind of language that will allay those concerns. He is opposed to specific allocations of funds to conservancies. I support the conservancies. I think they are important partners in water projects. We have limited the monies to conservancies to those projects that have to do with water, watersheds, and we have language in there that's really specific. If it's not specific enough, I'm certainly willing to do more, and Senator Hueso and I have talked about that. The major concern in his letter, and I think I have to be very honest about this, is that the use of funding for the implementation of the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, he wants language in there with respect to that. My feeling is that if this bond becomes a referendum on the BDCP or the tunnels, it will lose. And I think that is a mistake. And that is not, we ought not go in that direction. There are enough things to do in the state of California with respect to water and with respect to bonding that we should allow that Bay Delta Conservation Plan to move forward. It is in the middle of its EIR process. That may take till the end of the year or perhaps another year. I don't know how long. When it has a reality to it, then there will be needed more funding in the future. That's not this bond. This bond is about near-term projects on which we can agree that it's necessary, that they're critical, that we move it forward. And I think again, if it becomes a referendum on the BDCP, I think that would be a mistake. So I couldn't do that. But the rest is all not easily resolved, but could be resolved. So with that, and I pledged to try and work on that with him, and I have spoken to him about it. So with that, I hope I have answered the concerns that were raised. One other was the mountain counties. The way that they're concerned about their particular allocation, they get money from 2 IRWMP regions. Perhaps there should be some overlay for the mountain counties. We can take a look at that, and we shall. So with that, I thank you for an excellent hearing and for your good comments and insights, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Wolf. We do have a motion from Senator Hancock. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Item 1, SB 848 by Senator Wolk. The motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to Committee on Governance and Finance. Senator Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Gaines? No. Gaines, no. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Fuller? No. Fuller, no. Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Jackson? Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. 7-2.
Thank you,
7 to
Mr.
2. Thank you very much, Senator Wilk. Thank you, members. That motion passes. This bill will be moved to Governance and Finance.
6-2. Oh, we're missing somebody.
Yes, 6-2. 6-2. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for everyone attending the committee hearing today. This meeting is adjourned.